See,
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct, right? Yeah, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. It didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Trinity podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jess. How you feeling today, Jess?
I'm feeling great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Feeling great.
Feeling great.
What's your vibrational frequency today?
I'm vibrating at a 10, according to your scale. And according to my scale, I'm vibrating with love frequency.
And see, that's why I'm adopting into mine. I'm vibrating at love energy today.
Yay.
So what you grateful for this morning, this afternoon?
I'm just grateful for community right now. I'm really being cared for through some close friends, and I'm so grateful for their support and realizing that in being human, we all have times of needing that support. So I'm just grateful to be in the wreckage and be needing that support so that I can see it come through for me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm grateful for technology and understanding how in today's world, things I used to have to pay thousands of dollars out each month for 5 to 10 different people, from a videographer to a graphic artist to a script writer to a video editor to all these other a secretary, someone to adjust my minutes, an editor for my writing, and how AI can do all that. And what I find to be interesting is how people complain that they don't even want to pay $20 for that. I mean, $20, that's a meal that most people eat in a day. And one afternoon, that's lunch, that's dinner. And they would see, this is because people get brains or conditioned when something's free. It's hard to go from free to money. And that's what proves it. See, if AI first came out and they were like, this tool is $1,000 a month, and very few people to pay for it, but the people who pay for it would be very happy to pay $500 now than trying to get people from $0 to $20 now. That's how people think in their minds. And I'm grateful that I see the value of AI and the impact it has in my life. And I use all 10 tools of AI. I mean, I paid $20 for Claude, $20 for Gemini, $20 for, as well as $20 for ChatGPT. And I don't go between trying to save $20 a month by choosing which one I want to use. It's just interesting to people who think through that process of saying, I'm putting all this effort to try to save $20 a month. But if you had to put the same mental energy and the physical energy to making that decision, watching videos to determine which one is the best, would you put that same amount of energy to make $20? And that's what we know. And that's the economy that people have. And I'm grateful that I don't have to fall into that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, putting what you're grateful for and what I'm grateful for together is a community that supports us, reduces stress, and utilizes tools.
Absolutely. Because see, the thing about it, particularly when you get to over 45 years old, you realize that you go back to the eight energies now. Your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, spiritual, love, wisdom, soul, and then generative. And when you're young, your physical energy is up high. Mental energy is mid, but wisdom energy is very low. You don't have a lot of wisdom when you're young. And that's why our parents need to be in our lives. And if our parents are not in our lives, we're going to make bad mistakes because our wisdom energy is not there. So then when you get older, that balance starts to shift where your wisdom energy goes up because your physical energy starts to go down.
Mm.
And now you got more wisdom than you have energy, and you have to use that wisdom much more strategically. And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, that's where tools come into play. And then being able to hire the right individuals to help you grow your business and help you grow what your higher purpose is. And that's what we do is we help people build with that and build a tribe around their purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
that leads right into another thing to be grateful for is having the insight and the wisdom to see that you having a purpose is important because most people don't realize that their life is if life is hard or if life is not enjoyable, or if I ask you what's your spiritual energy number and from a 0 to 10, and you will say something like a 5 or 6, then you don't realize how much the construct is really impacting your life and draining your energy to the point that's why you feel that way. The anxiety, the tiredness, the confusion, the frustration, the anger, all these things that the only reason you're feeling this is because of what you're consuming mentally and then what you're consuming physically by what you're eating. Those two is a combination for severe energy drainage.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, it's really nice to have the history of building business and to be able to look at the difference now of how we're building and how the stress is completely different. Because if I look at who I was as a CFO building a business that was rapidly growing and seeing how I was showing up in meetings then, if someone had asked me what's my spiritual energy number, I would be like 0 or 1, maybe 2, scrape me off the floor, right? Like I barely made it to the meeting. How am I supposed to be helpful or effective?
Right.
Yeah. So we're just operating in a whole different model right now, like having that wisdom and having that experience behind us, and then also being able to retrospectively look back and see the progress and know that that progress is something that we're all experiencing collectively.
Absolutely. You know, I like in my own framework way of thinking that there's 3 tiers of human emergence. Again, this is my interpretation from all the books I've read. So I'm definitely influenced by the 7 habits of highly effective people and the 17 spiritual laws of the 7 spiritual laws of success and the 17 laws of success by Napoleon Hill. All these books help shape 4 agreements, my framework, and coming up with 3 tiers of human emergence. And that first tier I call liver, tier 1. And that's who everybody is. You're here, you exist, you're just living life, and you allow yourself to be completely controlled by the construct, and you accept it fully. You're told your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, your religion, your your career, all these things that you look at as external, and it should be your identity. You've chosen that's your identity,
Hmm.
and you live with that. And some, like I said, you even take pride in it to the point where you're willing to fight somebody, or you're willing to defend your honor if it's your country or your race
Hmm.
or your religion. And then we look at tier 2. Those are individuals who usually doesn't happen to around a person that's about 45 years old because you have to go through your journey in life for you to really gain the wisdom to start to see this, that all the things that you were told when you were young that was valuable that you should be working towards, getting married, the career, getting the kids through college, and now you have those things done and you have that house, and you and your wife don't talk, or you and your husband don't talk, and the kids are not really connected to you. They rarely come by, even though they got their own lives and everything else. And you ask yourself, this is what I put all this effort and energy into building, and you're feeling more disconnected than ever before. I call you a seeker. That stage tier 2. And now you're looking to say, what can I do more with my life? Because my soul is craving something beyond what I've already experienced. I
Hmm.
know there's much more to me than just what I've done. And those individuals can only receive the message that we're saying, that I've seen from my experience, once they've gone through that thunderstorm and you've been wrecked by it to the point where you hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there at rock bottom thinking, from as you're falling, why is this happening to me? You know, you're blaming everyone external to you. It's their fault. It's this person's fault. It's this fault. It's because I'm this. It's because I'm that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, all these things until you hit that bottom and you realize, and you look in that mirror, that's the only thing that's down there. And you have to say, I think the answer is me. I'm the reason why I'm here.
Right.
And until you do that, I remember reading and Think and Grow Free. I mean, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He talks about this guy came in who was about to jump off the bridge, and he was in Chicago. And the guy was Napoleon Hill said he's just about to close, and the guy came in and was like, he was considering suicide, and he wanted Napoleon Hill to talk him out of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling him all his reasons why he deserved to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, I want you to tell that to one person before you do, and this person really wants to meet you. He's a very important person. I think he really can help you." The guy's like, "Okay, I'll give him one try."
Mm-hmm.
So he took him around the corner, set him in front of this wall, and pulled his sheet from behind. And behind the sheet was a mirror.
Mm.
He said, "That person right there is looking dead at you. That's the person you need to talk to get your life in order."
Right.
And then you look at Michael Jackson, "Man in the Mirror," one of the most impactful, powerful songs that I love by Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's where people have to get to. But
Yeah.
And here's my question for you, because as we begin to accept that, we understand that through the journey of life, to get you in that wrecked state, there's a lot of grief you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And how does a person wrestle with that grief they're dealing with and then find some form of rebirth enough to start to make the change in their life they need to make?
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon because grief is very much a part of a midlife crisis. You know, what you're pointing to is like the stage of life that we go through. And it's funny because I thought that maybe there was a bypass for me. Like I looked at the generation ahead when I was in my 30s and I was like, "Oh, they're all in crisis. Like you hit 50 and they're just like losing their life literally." And I was like, I'm sure that's not going to affect me. I'll like sail through this midlife thing. But I remember the same perspective that I had as a teenager. Before I hit my teenage years, I remember my family, like my mom and my auntie, talking about how I was just going to become unrelatable and they wouldn't be able to find me and that I would be nasty. And so it is like this rite of passage that we go through as teens. And I think we normalize it as a culture that we say, you're going to go out and you're going to find your group. You're actually going to go get aligned with those that you're vibrating with in the same frequency. We don't really talk about that, right? But no, you're going to actually start splitting up into groups and find your own sense of belonging. And we know that that's just like a natural stage of development. And we talk about it like it's no big deal, but we don't really talk about midlife crisis in the same way. There's like, is everyone going to go through it? So, you know, with my midlife crisis, I would say I went through several grief stages. One was a loss of a marriage, the other one was a loss of a business and my employees. The other one was a loss of my mother, the loss of my best friend, the loss of my dog, it's like, and now most recently, the loss of my father. Each of those took me so deep into a world of grief that I had no idea. I had no idea that's actually identified as crisis. When I'm just like so overtaken by the stress. And really what it comes down to for me is the inability to manage all the stress that comes down when there's a shift in identity. You know, the loss of the marriage was like I was no longer identifying as that wife. The loss in the business, I was no longer identifying as the CFO. The loss with my friend, she was no longer identifying as a friend with cancer. So each of the losses essentially created a growth. But each of those losses then like created this deep-seated grief within me that I noticed after working with it and actually um, receiving support from my community and receiving support about crisis intervention allowed me to see that it's a stage of development where we learn to carry grief differently. And what I mean by that is looking at the mirror, like actually not avoiding the self and finding ways to come closer into what am I holding? What is it that's no longer aligned? And as I release that old identity, that old belief, that old mental pattern, there's a loss. You know, I no longer identify as that racist person, or I no longer identify as that mentally ill person, you know, but then who am I? And so there's this process of like holding my grief and the person or the identity that I'm letting go of. And then there becomes like this empty space of new creation where I am actually holding some virtues. And I think that's what you're referring to as the wisdom, that there's no way for us to gain the wisdom without actually going through the loss.
It is our natural growth process that we do in our lives. Like, school was set up based off graduating and understanding things at different levels. Not giving a child a PhD curriculum because the information is there. And see, that's what the internet does. And folks don't understand how to use it. So it's like a child literally talking and looking at PhD books and just playing around with it. And what do you expect that child to really get from it? Unless he's been taught a process of how to pronounce those words and what those words now mean and how to create sentences with those words and all those things that's required as the development stages grows. And now we've turned it into a way that children can now have a device in their hands and it's going to shape how they think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's designed to do that. And we all know that as human beings, we know that AI is listening to everything that we say, and people have Alexas in their houses that's listening to everything they say. And of course, now offering, and that's what they do, they offer perks for it in exchange for your data. Well, to give up your rights, how about the fact that we can now order milk when your milk runs low? How's that as an exchange for that? Or we can order diapers when your children need diapers. Now you ain't got to think about that anymore. Let us do that for you. And now when you're doing that, then you're telling them how often you buy the diapers and where you buy the diapers. And now they're controlling that. That becomes how they're generating money. And then you got to ask yourself, how much value that bring in your life, having them order milk and diapers for you just because it went low. In exchange for your sovereignty and the right for your own privacy. Not to have something listening to you. Was it worth that exchange? And then making that exchange and not understanding that you're bringing on that grief, that despair, because the AI systems are now designed to continue feeding you images of what you identified as your identity and showing you examples of grief and despair. And then also showing you who's the originator or the creator of that grief and despair. And that's this other. It's the immigrant. It's the gay. It's the black. It's the white. It's the Republican. It's the Democrat. Right? That's who's giving you this grief. That's who you should put your vitriol towards. It's not your fault. It's because you're a part of this class. And that's how this class gets treated. So then you are part of the unconscious collective, I call it. What I call forced tribalization. Then they reverse engineer you and tell you that the reason you're not successful is because the people who are successful pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And you got to be a maverick. And you got to go out here and just get things done your way.
Yeah.
So you're hearing two different competing messages in your head. You don't know which one is which. Am I a victim or should I be a maverick?
That's right.
And then you get stuck again. The next board, the next obstacle sticks you, and you get stuck there. And they tell you, well, that's because you're part of this collective group again.
Yeah.
So they just manipulate people back and forth. And our way of dealing with the manipulation, that confusion, that drainage now in our mental energies and our physical energies and our wisdom energy and our soul energy, now that drains down to our shadow. And our shadow self starts to be the dominant personality that people interact with. And we don't
Yeah.
even realize that's the case.
Right. That's what I was just leaving when we first met. That I was really having that experience of, well, the mental construct told me that I can pull up my bootstraps and build. So I did that thing. And the stress of it nearly killed me. So I spent a lot of time recouping and getting my body right so that I didn't have to die from stress. And then, the construct just comes right back in of like, well, you just do that thing again. Right? And like my body now is so intelligent after going through so much grief that my body's like, no, no. And then there's this battle between my mind and my body because my mind's like, no, you can figure this out. You can maverick. Remember, you can maverick.
Mm.
And that is like what creates the most massive shadow. My own internal battle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that I call the civil war in the skull.
Mm.
And you're constantly battling with each other. And again, that impacts your energy. That impacts your creativity, right? Because we are naturally creative problem solvers. We were put here on this earth to serve one another. And once you really, truly accept that and understand that and begin to live with that intentionality, life changes in every way possible.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at it from a context of change, meaning I get richer financially, my bank account grows, and I get more material things, then you miss the point and you miss
Right.
the boat and you're
Yep.
going to miss that blessing.
Yep.
But you look at it from a context of the people you meet, the type of things you get exposed to, what you learn, how you see the world, and the wonderful people you meet. Like you can go to Colombia and meet a group of indigenous people who really can't communicate with by language, our spoken language, but what is universal is a language of love. And you can see they're nodding to welcome you into their home.
Yeah.
They're sharing their food with you to show you that we're sharing our food. And they have, from what we look at as meager existence. And you would think that someone in that situation should not be sharing their food with you. They should be hoarding their food and hoarding their resources because they need it. Because in our world, we have so much that we hoard. We have, as George Carlin once said in his comedy routine, I'll never forget it. He said, we're the only species that buy a container just to store our stuff because we got too much stuff.
Right. We need storage containers.
We're a storage container. They said that we take out suitcases to travel a little of our stuff. So
Right.
there's a business around just our stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Even
Yeah. No, I'm grateful that you brought in our indigenous friends because you're right. Like they're just not coming from lack. And that's it. Like when we have storage, right? Like what's our lack motivation? Like, well, I'm not going to have this stuff. Well, what happens if you don't have that stuff?
Exactly.
And so like the fears and like how we just get trapped in that. It's so challenging to see until you actually move out and you're like, oh, whoa, there's people who are functioning with very little in a very simple lifestyle and are abundant.
And have more love energy.
Have more love energy.
And don't have to worry about within their community, someone in their community, of their community, raping one of the little girls.
Right.
Right. Because they're not receiving that kind of energy, that programming where they look at her as an object for them to just take advantage of because they have the physical size.
Yeah.
And that's what we experience in our world here, is because people don't realize that the companies and corporations have gotten us conditioned, going back on that need of having our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in 2007, it was the CEO of Intel. And they said, our vision is to get to the point where your phone becomes so valuable to you that it has your bank account information, it
Mm,
has your access codes, and your programs. So imagine going to your friend's house and putting your phone in their cradle, and now you're showing your streams or your shows that you're watching just that fast because you connected to their network. And he
mm,
thinks that that's a value add. Like people are asking for it. No one's asking for that.
mhm.
I never once said to myself, I wish I had my shows in
Mhm.
my pocket that I can bring on
Yeah,
the screen right now.
yeah. We actually had this conversation with an anthropologist friend of ours last week who's been all over the world studying these human patterns and conditions and seeing the differences between our indigenous friends and our modern friends. And he was talking about that they had finally received a cell phone in this tribe that was very remote, and that the biggest part of them offering that cell phone was to also give this really clear instruction of what they could possibly be receiving and digesting as far as propaganda if they choose to use that tool in that way, because that could really open up to this whole world that they are not prepared for at all.
And it will take over their entire way of thinking. It
Yeah.
would be like literally putting, as they say, how you do with traps in your house for rats and rodents. They take a little piece and then they take it back to the hive or back to the collective, and it kills all of them because the poison enters the system of that one. I mean,
Right.
think about this from this context, and this blew my mind one day. I was watching this documentary about Star Wars. And again, I'm a person who grew up with Star Wars. I first got exposed to it when I was 7. It blew my mind, and I've been a kid fan, a man, adult ever since. And now, again, yes, the quality of the movies have gotten better, worse over time than they were. And what people don't realize, the reason they've gotten worse is because you've gotten older. No one ever thinks about the fact that I saw that when I was 7, and that
Right.
blew my mind. It's not supposed to blow my mind at 37, but they still expect it. But anyway, that's another point I'm going with this. I learned that, said that the reason in the 3rd episode of Star Wars that George Lucas, the whole reason he created the Ewok characters, little cute little teddy bears, was
Mm-hmm.
strictly for merchandising.
Mm,
Like he really wanted to sell a toy to a kid, and he created that character just strictly for that purpose because it was originally written that they would be the size of Chewbacca, but they
that's
didn't. It
cool.
wasn't cute enough.
Wow. I was just listening to Drew Barrymore's new book, and she was talking about her relationship with him, and that George Lucas had taken her in as kind of like a father figure.
Hmm.
And so it makes me think that like Drew Barrymore was that little child. Actually, she did. In her book, she talks about like going to visit Princess Diana and that she was able to give her a little Ewok stuffy.
And you see now they create this whole little baby Yoda called Grogu. That's a whole, and I see people have it on their keychains. They had a little,
Everyone's got a Grogu.
huh? So they
Everyone's
did
got a Grogu now.
exactly. And so what they showed you is that as great of a show as Star Wars was, movie series, that the intent behind it was consumption, was
Mm,
selling a product. And throughout, and it's been a part of my life for 50 years. And I had all the Star Wars toys, and we
yeah.
had to have those. Our parents were, we had our parents hostage. Like we was not gonna let peace be in our house if we didn't get those toys at Christmas when they first came out, or each year they came out. As a matter of fact.
Yeah. No, we had that addiction too. Like my brother and I, we were like figurine masters, right? Like you had to have every figurine. But then I also have a little bit of a trauma story about it because my brother had a hard time cleaning up his figurines. And so my dad threw them all away one day.
Wow.
Yeah. And my brother still talks about it, how like that was the biggest thing my dad could have done to create an impact in his life. So you talk about like we had our parents. My parent also understood like that was the most valuable thing that a child had. Like we watched all the commercials to be like, I want that, I want that, I want that. And then finally we get that. Like that is our most prized item. Like this thing is more valuable than love.
External. This thing is external. And then
Yeah.
also you look at the dynamic in that. that thing also represents our identity. I mean, I'm Han Solo when I'm playing with that character.
Right.
I'm Luke Skywalker when I'm playing with that character.
I was
So
Princess Leia.
exactly, exactly. So we grew up in a world as a kid, our identity is being fluid because we're just learning, we're discovering, and we're having fun and nothing. But somehow you get taught that you got to become more practical and more realistic. And then you're told this is your identity. And this is how the world sees you as a result of this being your identity. You didn't choose that. It was told to you. And so on top of just normal human grief that we go through as human beings, just as you talked about all the losses that you had with your father and the divorce and the business, that on top of that human, that every human's going to have to deal with in various forms, regardless of your race, sexuality, gender, all that. Everyone's going to have those challenges. Now you want to add race on top of the energy drink. That's what I'm saying. That's a double compound impact that people are suffering from. And it's not just Black
Right.
people, it's everybody who identifies by your race. You're
Mm-hmm.
having a drainage in one form or fashion. We can walk through that, what that looks like, but it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I discovered that in my life, by the wreckage I went through in 30 years of seeing myself only by my race and being so sure and knowing that this was my purpose because it had been drilled into me. And then the trauma of the pain of what that meant had been drilled in me. So perpetual lifestyle of victim. So anytime something didn't go my way, it's because I'm Black.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have some, I'm not saying dismissing every case of racism. So that's where people get it wrong. They want to debate individual cases. And it's like you're missing the point.
Right.
What if it was 99 cases of racism, but one that it wasn't? Isn't that one worth that is not worth exploring? Or how you
Yeah.
can take advantage of the opportunity? And
Right.
that's where you got to get to the point where people keep trying to make everything binary. Like either people are racist or they're not racist. And really understanding what do you mean by that? Like I get into discussions with people all the time, particularly people who are of my shared skin suit, and they say certain people are Uncle Toms and sellouts, and they're saying it's based off how this person's behaving and that they feel is contradictory to the collective.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be the collective consciousness, even though it's not written, but it's just supposed to be collectively assumed
Mm.
that everybody understands this is how we're operating. And then when you go against that grain and you make decisions that are not in alignment with the collective that never agreed
Mm-hmm.
to it, but in your best interest of your family, and then you get called an Uncle Tom or a sellout because you're not considered in the collective. And then if
Right.
you go ask those people who are challenging you to say that you are Uncle Tom and a sellout, what have they doing and what they're actually doing for the collective, they can't answer that
Mm-hmm.
because they're not doing anything for the collective other than arguing that other people are not doing things for the collective. But they're not doing anything proactively, such as helping people get into homes, creating more jobs, creating more businesses.
Mm.
They're not doing that with their capital, but they're holding someone else to that to say, if I had their money, here's what I'll do. And
Mm.
that's being performative. And I see that in the racial identity. I see that in the religious identity. I've talked to folks who identify as Christian and come and tell me in their 5-second introduction, I'm a Christian. And my question to folks is, okay, so what do you want me to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to understand, I have a different meaning in my life what that means than you think that I mean. So what do you want? So because again, Don Miguel Ruiz teaches us don't assume.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you, what do you mean by that? And it's a pattern interrupt because most people are not thinking critically, so don't have an answer for what they mean by that. They
Mm-hmm.
expect me to react a certain way, either see them with trauma, treat them differently, but definitely see myself separate from them, which is the objective of them saying that. We're separate. That's what I'm telling you. So now
Yeah.
I'm asking you, well, now that we're separate, you've identified that. So what do we do with that information that now that we're separate? And they
Mm-hmm.
don't have an answer for that.
Yeah. I've been noticing as we've been having conversations and building our network, how this comes up in so many ways. Like there's the obvious ones when somebody's like, I'm a white man. You know, nobody leads with that anymore. But 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 there's like um even saying I'm I don't know, I'm thinking of like a state name or a country name. Like, if I go to Colombia, I might lead with I'm from North America.
Hmm.
There's like these sly things that come in that are your identity as well, that you look at like, where's your collective bias? Okay, I'll lead with that. And that for me is dissolving everywhere, and I'm noticing it everywhere. If you're leading in the first couple minutes of our conversation with some sort of identity that is a collective identity, that for me is like pinging my awareness of not yet fully human, right?
Hmm. Yes. Yes, I agree 100%. And that's where you and I are able to operate in the space of being in a perpetual state of gratitude. So you can't get to a perpetual state of gratitude, in my belief, and that somebody can come and show me where I'm wrong, where they live with gratitude, not just grateful for a few things every now and then. Like, you're grateful for the raise and promotion. You're grateful for the car you've gotten. You're grateful for the financial windfall someone may have given you. But I'm talking about staying at the state of gratitude every single day when you wake up. You
Mhm.
don't get there until you release the identity of what's holding you back. Because until you can get triggered, because so you can tell yourself you're grateful, and then the minute you turn on the news, you get triggered.
Yeah.
And now you're no longer grateful anymore. And you allow the construct to control you, just as Pavlov with the dog. Whistle, now you're salivating.
Mhm.
Trigger, now you're reacting. It's
Mhm.
ruined your day.
Yep.
Then you get out there in traffic, and now you're driving with aggression and frustration. And now your energy is impacting other people's energy. And then you get to work, and as you said, by the time you get to work, you drain from that. And then you got to deal with the fact that you're not liking certain people at your job, and then you got to immediately interact with their energy, and that's affecting your energy. And you may
Mhm.
not like your boss. If you are the boss, you may not like your employees, and all that energy is going there. And
Mhm.
you're now spiraling out of control. Now you're trying to react to each thing. Now you need coffee. I need a drink. You start saying things like that. I
Yeah.
need this. I need that. Where what you should do is look in the mirror and ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, can you really define why you're actually doing this? Not because you have a house and you have a mortgage, yes, but why are you doing this? Is this bringing you peace?
Yeah. And I love that you brought the mirror conversation up because this is like really good medicine right here. Daily work on how to become fully human. It really is looking in the mirror and asking these existential questions. Who are you? What are you doing?
And why are
And
you doing it?
yeah, exactly. And then in that exploration, listening, you know, are those constructs or are they like real authentic internal soul desires? Because the minute they're the soul desires, we're tapping in. We're tapping into that resourced soul, the one that's not drained, the one that's regenerating, the one that is centering, the one that is peaceful. And I think that's where inner peace actually comes from, are those moments. And the more that we can practice that centering and that clear identity of no identity, the identity of no identity, that's when there is opportunity to move forward in being fully human.
And that fully human to me needs to be that collective selected identity until you can get to the point of consciousness that we do achieve no identity, and really become one in a true connective oneness. But
Hmm.
being fully human gives us the sovereignty to say, I chose
Right.
this,
Yeah.
as opposed to it was chosen for me, and I'm just falling through on someone else's script that some writer wrote for me,
Right.
right?
Yeah, because there's what was chosen for us, and then there's all the unconscious things that we chose for ourselves.
As a result of that,
As a result of that. But ultimately, we do get to come to a stage in our life where we have the free will to choose, where we can,
exactly,
when we can break free from that. And I think both of us were at that pivotal point in our life. We were going through that rite of passage. We had hit enough storms that when we came into contact together, that was like a real synergistic moment because both of us had left behind that construct consciously said, there are too many external things that I'm attached to. And I know that's not where love is. Right. So, can you share just a little bit about your experience through the lens of race in Colombia?
Columbia, Columbia, South America.
Colombia, South America. I know you have a Columbia, Maryland too.
Yeah, when you said that, that's why I had to make sure I understood what you
We
were
met
referring
each
to.
other at Mountains of Hope, Colombia, and I know that it wasn't the most diverse group of people there. They were certainly bringing in a lot of people from North America into a culture that was Colombian. So already there's some identity mixture there, and just like a very general um, polarity in the field. So, did you experience that polarity, or based on what you were going through at the time, how did you experience that?
Well, that's a good question. I, at this stage in my level of mental competence and maturity continuum, I interpret that to be that we're all an energy. And I felt that we are all an energy for the first time in my life there. Because everybody was dealing with their own collective trauma and energy and healing that needed to be done. And it was understood this is a healing sanctuary, right? And everybody had reasons to want to heal and need to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what that's separated difference. And to
Yeah.
be honest, it helps me bring to mind, maybe Mike had been onto something with this, that I don't think that if folks weren't dealing with cancer as a need to heal, could they have been as open as they were if it were just detoxing? Like if I was there with 10 folks, same people now, but they're detoxing instead of dealing with possible life and death
Mhm.
issues, would they have been as open and welcoming? And I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Well, I can answer that
oh
because I experienced both groups.
okay.
Yeah, I can say that no, they are not the same at all. Those who are going through detox are just doing a healing, a clearing, like an upgrade. I'll take an upgrade. And I don't mean just because I know detoxing is a big deal.
Right.
But people who are in a crisis of cancer are really looking at the death door, looking at this coming to an end. So it's a very different demographic and it's a very different storm. And what we're talking about here in becoming fully human is that you're coming from the storm.
And so you've been cracked wide open,
Yeah.
right?
Because you're looking at like the existential crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you start questioning, and that's why I say you have to be wrecked, really, before you really start questioning your identity. Like we had Rachel on the show the other day, the show we do with her, and she mentioned the fact about her identity being associated with her hair,
Mm-hmm.
and in her career before that. And she had to let all that go, right? And that's how identity is so embedded in us. It's layers deep,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just the layer of just changing, okay, I'm not going to call myself black. And it's like, no, we got to go deeper than that, to the point, what is that? What do you define black as? Or what do
Yeah.
you define as white? You see, again, most people, when I talk about this race thing being created, made up, and people want to challenge me, that you can go back and study
Mm.
that even in the 1900s in this country,
Mm-hmm.
Irish was considered white. Catholics wouldn't consider it white. They got welcome later on. Jewish wasn't considered white, right? It just kept changing and adding more people to it. So it's never been this set strict definition that we treat it as. We treat it as like it's a natural fact like gravity, and it's not.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
fluid belief system based on someone's political ideology at that time for their benefit. And everybody accepts that as their definition of the same definition.
Right.
And you can, and that, they say the true definition of power is you can get other people to accept your definition of power as their definition of power. That's
Yeah.
power,
That's
right?
right.
And that's what we've done is we've allowed the construct to define these things and change it whenever we want. Now, even if you look at applications now, it
Yeah.
says white, non-white, Hispanic. What does that mean? I mean, what kind of category is that? Right?
Yeah.
And they just creating that right there on the fly. And people are thinking like, am I non-white Hispanic? You know?
Yeah.
And so that's how it has us in our minds.
Yeah.
And this and my other point, real quick, let me just say this, that when it comes to politics and people don't look at the insanity in this, that when you say, okay, I'm a Democrat, now they're taking that to say, are you a progressive, moderate, or conservative Democrat?
Mm.
Well, wow, right? Now I got to choose within my own party where I am. So
Right.
you continue to get
And then are you fiscally conservative? Going,
exactly.
right? Like, let's get you all the way filtered down to your identity of exactly where you stand.
So now I can speak directly to you.
Yeah.
And that's because people think that because that's you, and that
Mhm.
voice in your head is telling you that's you, but it's not you. And you accept that. At the end of the day, if you're debating this, whether you want to accept what you and I are saying, the question
Yeah.
becomes, if you choose that identity, is it making you a kinder person? Does it bring you more peace in your life? And does it make you overall a better person?
Yeah.
Right? And if the answer is yes to each of those, then live your identity to the fullest.
Right.
But for me, it wasn't. It was no to all of them.
Right. Yeah, I'm just noticing from this conversation several major identity changes that I've had in my lifetime. Like, I've really prepared myself for this. I have been through some identity shedding. Um, some significant ones that I'd like to speak about. One was losing my identity as a business owner. I've done that a couple of times just as like leadership roles. The first one was the director of operations, losing that identity and then going back to working in the classroom was like a big ego shift. And then in building a business and then selling the business, losing that identity of the business owner, the CFO was like a big shift. I was also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 14 years. Leaving that church and losing that identity was a complete shift in losing my whole community and my family. I also went through a shift when I was coming into conscious living, and I noticed that I had put so much external validation on my appearance. And I had a friend who was going through a cancer journey and she was about to go into chemo and we were on a team together. And so I was wanting to support her and also wanting to shift my identity from this external woman who had it all together because I certainly didn't have it all together. And so I decided to join her. And I said, "You're losing your hair. You're letting go of your hair. I'll let go of my hair." And I had put a lot into my hair of like straightening my curls and shifting the color. And like I was going to create the identity, the image that I wanted, not the one that was naturally given to me. And so I said, I'll lose that. I'll let go of that identity. And that one was the biggest identity shift I think I've ever experienced because I went from one day like there would be eyes on me, like walking down the street. I'm like, in this color, this look, this design, this environment. It was like working for me. And it gave me a lot of external validation. And the day that I shaved my head, I remember doing my mirror work and looking in the mirror and asking those questions. Who are you? And what are you doing? And why? And I could just see my father. It was the most horrid, horrible experience that I've ever had of like, wow, like you are your father's daughter, which I wasn't a super fan of him at the time. And now you get to experience the world as him. So I walked out into the world, no eyes on me, and not only no eyes on me, but no one can even look in my eyes. And if I try and talk to someone, they look down, and then I get like sorry and pity and what's wrong with you kind of reactions. And it wasn't for just a day. It wasn't like wearing a fat suit for a day and like understanding that identity. it was like, no, my hair's gone. Like you don't get it back the next day. And so it really had me go more internal and be like, it's not about the external validation at all. And yes, we all are the children of our parents. There's no denying that. Um, but it got me into really seeing like what is identity about, and we really get to choose. We get to choose who we are and what we attach to and how we appear, and using our voice to clear this external minutia so we can get closer to the center of who we actually are. I would say since then I've gone through more sheddings of identity, real noticing like identities that I took on that weren't even from the construct. They were my own traumatic response of I'm going to just be this. I'm just going to take on this label now, and seeing the pain and suffering that comes from doing that. So really at this point I'm seeing that like grief is such a big component of this work, because that's many, many identities of letting go.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing it. That's such a lot to share and a lot to unpack. And you've had quite the journey, and you're absolutely right. It's a journey that prepared your armor to be thick enough for the fully human movement, to be to resonate and vibrate at this level of consciousness that we advocate. And understanding that not everyone is vibrating at this level. Not everyone wants to look at themselves and say, it's my identity that's holding me back. Because they've been told their whole lives their identity is who they are. And they don't want to let that go. And that's a direct violation to their core. It's what they believe. But again, it's a thought. And see, what people don't realize, our energy, our souls know. And see, here's what I believe. And I tell folks this, that if you study all the religions out there, and then you study all the spiritual teachings, and you read all the great philosophers, what seems to be the common thread for those that really let you get truly is that we have divine entity, the divine essence in us, right? And then you look at physics and you realize the energy is everything and everything is energy. So now we got science back with religion that both talks about the fact that energy, the divine source, being within, and anything that tells you it's external is contradictory to that. And in believing that, I believe that now my added essence of my understanding to that is that I believe our soul now is the energy source that stays finite. That's what doesn't leave or go away and stand finite. Since your soul has been created, all the thoughts and behaviors, the energy that you've done, your soul knows.
Right.
And then that gets manifested back into the world you experience it.
Yeah.
Right. So when people try to make the law of manifestation work, it's like you're still going to be experiencing what your soul already had recorded first. You still got to get through that.
Right.
Just because you're hoping and you said a few affirmations, your life's not about to change instantly, regardless of what the book told you.
Right.
Right. You have to show that you're truly committed. That's which is why we created the 180-day journey.
Right.
The 6-month journey of being in the wild rhythm, because if you do this and you commit to this for 6 months, now that's a journey. And you give yourself room to make mistakes along that journey.
Right.
That you may fall off or go back into your old pattern or get triggered and get thrown off and lose the state of gratitude that you're in.
Yeah.
But you now have a true north to point back to say, this is where I want to be. Let me get my frequency back there. And the only way I've learned to do that is through the law of service. The only way I've known to get back the true north is how can I give more? How can I serve better?
Yeah. And one thing that I've noticed in the serving is that I can only, as much as I do need to serve others, like I only have so much energy here. And so the wild rhythm is like ensuring that I serve myself first so that I can serve others from a full cup. That I'm already overflowing, that my nervous system regulation is functioning, that my energy is functioning. And then from that place, it's like, now I can support others.
And see, that's where been a blessing to be able to connect with you, because you understand that. Now I didn't understand it. So I get so much in my frameworks and my thinking that everything is for me is steps, processes, systems, execute. And you're right, without having the feminine energy of getting known and control and one with your body, your breath, your mind, yoga, stretching, and eating the right foods, and just being out in nature, as you talk about, getting that wild rhythm. Without that, you're going to get burned out.
Right. Right. So I think you and I coming into this fully human emergence happened at the most beautiful time because we had been through the wreckage. We were clear on the identities and leaving those identities and letting go. And you were clear on your frameworks, and I was clear on my rhythm. And then we were clear that those two were going to come together so that they could support both of us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we get ready to wrap up today's show, it's just important that we both say that, to your point, having the desire to do the law of service, and I'm learning this because it's great to have these thoughts in your head. There's three forms of creation: it's the mental creation, the written creation, and then the actual implementation creation. And when you those and each stage is different, the amount of energy that it consumes. And when you begin to start executing this, the challenges that you face, because it's not instinctive at first. You have to put work to it. You have to put conscious thought. It's like, I'm a creature of habit. My keys, when I get home, I empty my pockets in the same place every day. And I go back to that space to get my keys back. And it has to be that way. Or if my keys are not there, they can be anywhere else in the house. I'm panicking because they're not in that exact location. That's been a creature of habit. And so the 6 months gives you a chance to get these things in habit and that wild rhythm you need in order to keep your body in that space as well, because you realize this: the biggest mistake we're taught is that reach for these goals, always think and work toward KPI, key performance indicators, and all these things they tell us in business and personal development, working towards that growth. And everybody's always focused on the destination. Then they tell you, well, enjoy the journey, right? Don't lose sight of the journey. But see, what I realized is that life is the journey itself. There is no destination. You enjoy the journey of life every single day. And that's when you live in the perpetual state of gratitude, realizing that in this moment that I can see that's real, I am grateful.
Yeah.
And when you put that energy down and then you put your wild rhythm together with your breath work, that brings a different energy to that whole experience, in my belief.
Right. And then we're operating from a fully human heart collective that is aligning with service. And that is our purpose. Like when we're overflowing, we can be of service to others and allowing that to flow into goddess tears. And then knowing that goddess tears will flow into the stages of life of those deserving souls who are in the crisis, are in the wreckage, right? So this like regenerative energy is happening now in the fully human community.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be saying as we get ready to wrap up. That's the movement we're building. Is building this fully human movement to see who individuals who are ready to give up their racial identity, who are those seekers, and you're ready to go to that third tier, which is co-creation. And the only way you can get to co-creation is getting your embodying the fully human identity and entering that as that fully human, that level of co-creation. That way the construct can't tear you down and trigger you and cause the whole movement to collapse because you got triggered or your shadow element came up and you were influenced by chasing after money or power or all these things that the construct uses. Being fully human puts you in a space where that no longer is your mission. Your intent is to build and co-create and live in the law of love energy, and then you feel that. So any closing thoughts you want to say as we get ready to wrap up today's show?
I just heard you say, like, my intent is everything, and my intent is gratitude. My intent is love. My intent is service. And this just feels like in service to me, in service to you, in service to humanity, in service to the universe. This is feeling very aligned. So I welcome anyone else who is resonating with this message to come join us.
So grief and gratitude can be held in the same space and time. In the
I
space.
think they're destined this way. I think it's grief and gratitude.
Mm.
Yeah.
There you go. I love it. I love it. You started something new there. Okay. I feel that. I feel that. Well,
Can't have
thank you.
one without the other, yeah?
No, exactly. Whether you want to or not. You know, you need to have light and dark. You know, you don't appreciate the light until you've been in the dark. Like, you know, when you can turn a light on and it works, that's a great feeling when you walk into a room and it's like it's black and it's like click. Oh yeah, that's yeah, just for that second. You had anxiety there until you turn that light on with certainty. Now it's and that blessing, that gratitude lasts only for a second, then you take it for granted.
Right.
Whereas we're saying that once you become fully human, it's instead of gratitude doesn't become a fleeting feeling that you chase. It becomes a state that you live in.
Yeah.
And you live there because you're perpetually grateful for the things in your life that you're blessed with daily: the sight, the hearing, the breath, the mind, the body, and then now having the ability to care for someone else and wanting another person to succeed. And that intentionality raises your energy level up, and that's when you become quantumly entangled.
Yeah.
And that's the power that we're talking about building within the fully human movement. So
That's right.
as we wrap up today's show, into next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, let's all continue to find ways to be more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yes, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the